Something very interesting happened this Friday. In the sense, interesting in the sense I met some of my bits classmates. One friend had come down from UK. So me and a couple of other folks who live in Bangalore, we decided to catch up at one of the restaurants in 12th May in Indiranagar, and we had a great laughter, great fun, a lot of interesting topics. Moments from the past, 25 to 30 years ago. Yeah, I mean, you could see the epiphany moment in most people, the recollections of some extremely fun events from our lives, and what things are going to look like in future. So as we started talking, as you can expect, the Uncle G's like us to talk in late 40s. And naturally, the topic veered towards health, wellness, habits, priorities in life, etc. Work pressure and related topics. And I thought, I'll take that as a hint and cover a little bit about why health should be a priority in your 40s and not later. Um, and how do you get better? And then it then boils down to some simple tips on why habit is very important and the importance of, let's say, having a good body and then good mind and things around that. Yeah. So eventually, so I'll get started. So one of my friend, I really like him a lot. Very close to me. He lives in Bangalore, and unfortunately, he's a little out of shape at this point. Just like most of us are or were at some stages of our life. That happens. Yeah. So generally, I was quite concerned with how he appeared and his mental state as well. Didn't seem to be in a great state. And I thought, there could be many other people in similar situations. And even if you're not, hopefully this will give you some, kickstart to, maybe start your wellness or health journey. Yeah. So let's go. So point number one is talking about priorities in 40s, right? So different people have different priorities, of course. I have no judgment or let's say denouement towards how you want to think. But let's say you're someone in your 20s, you will have different priority. In 30s, mid 30s, you could have something different. Early 40s, late 40s, things change, and that's what makes us humans, right? Now, what I figured is in 40s, you definitely have to prioritize your health. Um, it's not to say that you shouldn't do it before. If you the earlier the better, of course, right? But this is for people like me or other people who've ignored it for a long time. Then I would say if you're in 40s and particularly in the other side of the 40s, after 45, then you should prioritize this a little more than what you've done earlier and keep that as, let's say, one of the top, in fact, the top, but if not the top two or three priorities in your life. The the reason is it becomes a foundation for everything else, right? So let's say you are not healthy in terms of both your body and mind. It's impossible for you to take care of anybody around you. I mean, you probably not even be great at your work. You'll not be great at taking care of your family or anything else, right? That's point number one. Whether you're ambitious or it can be anything that you desire in your life. But if this foundation is not set, it's very unlikely that you will achieve something else. And even if you do achieve something else, and if this foundation is weak, it's not going to make sense. I mean, you must be knowing about a very famous term that people say you can have 1,000 problems in your life till health becomes the only problem, right? So, yeah, be a little careful. And the main thing is things slow down in your 40s remarkably compared to your 20s and 30s. The body takes a bit of beating, kind of adjusts, it tries to bounce back, keeps you going, right? But as you cross 40s, things are slowing down a lot. Your muscles take time to repair. Your bone strength is weakening. Your muscles are weakening a bit. Your cognitive abilities are also going to dwindle a little bit. So there is some kind of a decline in general for humans, and 40s seem to kind of accelerate that. Let's say slow decline that starts for everyone, and 50s kind of accelerates it. So if you don't kind of arrest the decline and make sure that you can maintain at a reasonable level, the decline is going to be so steep and miserable in your 50s that you'll be spending time only repairing it, and not even having a reasonable life. So that's something that I want to bring up. Just to make sure that you don't ignore it in your 40s and keep that as one of your, if not the top priority, at least one of the top two or three. I don't know what else you might have at that age, but yeah, I can really think of these things. Yeah, so you might actually question, like, why not, why can't I defer it and maybe do it in your 50s? And it's not impossible. Again, it just becomes very hard, right? Your metabolism also slows down, recovery time takes time. And why do you want to delay something that you possibly can do right away, right? Just protect what you have. That's better. Now, this is something that I've, point number two, right? This is something that I've often heard from a lot of people. If you ask them, how are you and do you want to get better? The answer is an unequivocal yes, right? Nobody's going to say no to not wanting to get better in their life. And so everyone wants to be better than yesterday, or how they were at any previous epoch in time. Now, how do you get better? Then when your intent is there, you know what, where you have to go. It could be in terms of career, it could be in terms of your personal life, professional life, or body, or anything, or mind, right? You might have some goal for yourself, let's say, in terms of getting fit or being healthy. But what's unfortunately happening with most people is that there's a huge chasm or a gap between the intent and the outcome, because once you have the intent, you have to act on it, right? Just intent is not enough. Just like, how people say that, oh, I had this brilliant startup idea but I never acted on it. So ideas are not worth anything. Same way, there's no point just having intent, right? If you're struggling with putting that intent into some kind of an action, that intent itself doesn't make any sense. In fact, your brain is going to react in a probably a negative way, thinking that, hey, this is always about intent and he never acts. And the laziness is going to set in. More of indolence is what your template is going to be filled with. So think of this as, so essentially, if you see the gap between intent and outcome or action, it's mostly about habits, right? So that's what I thought I'll cover a little bit and mention about, why body in general, take care of your body. I'll mention that from a, let's say, philosophical angle. So you can think of habits as your foundation of life. Now you might be thinking, why is this guy capable of even talking about it, right? So the reason I think I'm qualified to talk about it is because I've done everything in life. I'm probably the one of the most qualified persons to even talk on this subject, because not only I've quit some of the worst bad habits that are around, I've been there, done that, and I've quit them. I also have learned how to form good habits, and today I'm very confident about doing both. I can quit any bad habit easier, I mean, easier than before, and I can also form any new good habits that I need to. So I've learned that science behind it, right? So I just want to talk about, because this is the bridge between your intent and outcome. That's the only thing, and it's not complicated, right? So let's touch upon a little bit. It's a huge topic, so I won't go into detail. I'll just cover the highlights. We'll do a separate session on it later. But let's get into it. So when I say it's a foundation of life. So what if I actually tell you that 70 to maybe about 80% of every single daily actions of ours is actually driven by some kind of a habit. It's kind of super subconscious and not a conscious choice at all, right? From brushing your teeth, or the leg that you use to put your underwear, for example, the way you sleep in the bed, the way you cover the blanket, the way you sit cross-legged or wide-legged, however whatever it is, right? The way you carry your laptop bag to type, pretty much everything that you do, if you actually think, I mean, people don't, right? We don't have to. That's why it's a habit. So what is habit? It's a subconscious action that you have. You don't have to train, because the brain is already trained to perform that without you thinking, and that's a good thing. We'll talk about those things later. But yeah, so this is exactly the foundation of your life. And in fact, I can go on to say as much that every cell in your body, every atom, every cell in your body is programmed with your habit. Such is the power of habit that you don't realize it today, right? So let's see little bit of, I'll give you some highlights. Neuroscience, for example, if you take, every habit is a neural pathway. I'm sure many of you would have heard about the book. think what is it called, Tiny Habits, or what is it, the famous book somebody wrote, which I read, I forgot. Atomic Habits, yeah, sorry, yeah, Atomic Habits or Tiny Habits, and Charles Duhigg's book of Power of Habits. So pretty much all of them talk about habits in great detail. Why did those books sell millions and millions of copies? Right, it's a remarkable number of copies they sold is astonishing, and still you find people struggling to even form a habit, which is why any nutrition based app or exercise based apps, even if they have a lot of downloads, pretty much 95 to 98% of them seem to be free users, freeloaders who don't want to pay for it, because people don't just follow through. They want personalization and other things. That's a different topic for a day. Yeah, but so every single thing that you do is actually a neural pathway. When you repeat an action, the neurons fire together and strengthen this connection. That's it, right? If I see this, I do this, and this is the outcome. If I see this, I have to do this, this is the outcome. That's it. It's very simple that you have to remember. But the beautiful thing is there is something called as neuroplasticity, in which you can weaken the pathway over time. If it's a bad habit, which means you replace one of the actions with something else which is less vicious than you're doing. And then to form a new habit, you just need to create a new pathway. That's about it. And the pathway gets stronger and stronger and stronger. It's almost like the road traveled 1,000 times. You don't have to remember the routes. Whereas the road that you travel first time, you still have to remember how do get by to your office or the canteen, for example, or a restaurant. But if you've traveled 1,000 times, you pretty much know. So the brain behaves the same way. So it's something that you have to remember, and yeah, that's important. So basal ganglia is part of the brain that stores your habits. In fact, it doesn't even care if it's a good habit or a bad habit. It's something that we coin as a good habit versus a bad habit. The brain doesn't really care. For it, it is just a habit, right? So I spoke to you about cells and biology. So again, just to give you regular exercise literally changes how your mitochondria functions, right? You would have read that people who do gym pretty much understand this. It makes you more efficient. Poor sleep and junk foods, etc., affects your hormones in such way. So your body is in a way is actually listening subconsciously to your routines, whatever you're doing, right? Eating, sleeping, exercising, the good things that you do, the bad things that you do. The body is listening to it and adapting, which means at a cell level, right? So habits even have, so along the epigenetics, they in fact say that habits have the effect of even changing your genes to a certain level, in terms of turning off the good genes and upregulating the better genes, etc., right? So these, it has a lot of effects. So even at a cell level, you should remember that it remembers your habit. For example, they say, if your muscle remembers the training that you've done, we call it as muscle memory. People who go to gym understand this, that's why you recover or regain the lost muscles much, much faster when you rejoin the gym or get back after a gap, right? That's number one. And then your, circadian rhythm, that the time of sleep and the time of waking up, that's kind of, that sleep cycle is programmed in something like a clock gene in your cell. That's why when you have a jet lag, or when you have some days in which you don't sleep at a particular time or wake up at a particular time, your body literally feels a little nervy and stressed. It knows there's something different. So this is on the fundamentals of habits, and also how your body reacts, such that I can tell you that everything that you do is around the nucleus of a habit, right? You are built around that. We're all just a function of f of h. F of h is nothing but h is a habit. Now, with that being said, we covered that we have the intent, but we don't know how to do. So that's why we said we need habit. And this is not a session where I'll go into how to form habits. I mean, there are enough books for, or I'll do another topic on it separately, because it requires 3, 4 good long sessions. But one small tip for anyone who wants to start, or let's say form a good habit, is to start small. That's it. It has to be ridiculously, stupidly small for you to perform. That's about, and then you do that 1,000 times, 500 times, some X number of times, which is going to make sense for you. That number varies according to research. Once you do that, it's a habit, and that's the easiest and the best way to form a good habit, right? So then, generally, there is a contention, or let's say chicken and egg kind of an argument in people when we meet. So they'll say, two things I've seen is, when people say, I want to do it, but uh, I'm not able to find time. let's say you're a working professional or whatever, right? You people generally come with two arguments. One is work pressure, etc. The other thing is around control of cravings. So people in general, even if they're able to exercise to a reasonable degree, the harder thing for most people seems to be the cravings part, particularly towards food, right? And there are a lot of people who are fallible and they, get sucked into this part. Now, to the answer to the first question typically is a priority. Everybody is busy, everybody is not busy, everybody has different priorities in life. If you don't prioritize your health and your body to be the number one thing in your life or as the foundation on which you can build everything else, you just don't do it. That's it. Because you prioritized something else over exercising or something else over not eating junk food, then it's not going to happen. So you have to sit down and think through on what is your priority at that particular frame and spend time. I mean, you have to adjust your schedule. Nobody is going to do it for you. And health and body is such a thing that you cannot buy. Tomorrow, if somebody needs money, maybe somebody can help. If you need if anything that is some kind of a what do you call measurable thing can actually be given to you in some form. Advice can be given, money can be given, support can be provided in some form, but your body cannot be bought. You cannot buy health. Even if you go to the hospital, you'll spend, but you cannot buy health. You can only do it yourself, right? Which is why it's pretty hard, and you can't. Others can only give you gyan like what I'm doing to a point. So the question comes in terms of why do I need to give, let's say, some kind of advice to my friends? Because I really care for him, right? And that is very, very genuine. One of the reasons I started doing this podcast or talk a lot about health, wellness, fitness, relationships, and other things is because one is I've kind of lived that kind of life for a while, for almost 3 years to be able to talk about it. And I also know what the beautiful, enjoyable benefits are due to that, right? Not just the physical, tangible ones, but even the mental ones. It's insanely good. That's all I can say. So if you're a friend of mine or someone who's just hearing it for time pass, whatever it is, just prioritize it so that you can have a great life. The life is going to be hard, but at least it's good. Okay, so another question that usually comes typically is, mind or body. It's kind of a chicken and egg, right? Which comes first? So should I have a great mind and a great body, or a great body leads to a great mind? There's very not very clear answers to it, but I would tend to think that you need some spark in your mind. It's like a spark plug. Think of a spark plug that make sure it provides the initial current for your engine to start, and then the engine becomes the body, and then you start riding, and then the brain again kind of wires it pretty well. So I would say overwhelmingly, I would say you need a great body to have a great mind. It's not possible, but you just need that little bit of spark plug, which is what I'm hoping I can provide to my friends and people who are listening to it. That's about it. So I'll just cover a little bit of some great quotes from some philosophers, which I think might be useful for you. Three, four good ones, which I recently came across, which helped me motivate myself a little bit. Things like motivation, willpower, and other things. We spoke about that during our Friday conversation. I already have covered a great deal of information about that in my previous podcast, so you can look it up. But yeah, let's come back to the quotes. There's a beautiful quote by Thomas Carlyle. Was the reason when I mentioned about body, I just thought I'll cover that. There is but one temple in the universe, and that is the body of a man. Nothing is holier than that high form. So this is by Thomas Carlyle, a Scottish philosopher in 1800s. Socrates, as reported by his pupil Xenophon, it is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable. Again, this is very straightforward. So, think this quote in particular, I use it in some of my WhatsApp groups that I have with friends, where we motivate each other to work out, etc. So, this is something that I strongly was influenced by particularly this particular quote by Socrates or attributed to Socrates. Then you have the modern philosopher Nietzsche. I don't know how to pronounce, but I hope it's correct. Nietzsche. There is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy. So, again, Nietzsche has written a lot about why you should respect your body, and that's almost, let's say, he took a very different stance than the Western philosophers had taken by the time, right? So yeah, so I think fundamentally what I'm trying to point out is you in at this late 40s towards your 50s, I think you have to spend a little more time thinking about what your clear priorities are, and once you know what is your priority and then you start to act on it, you get, if you are stumbled by habit formation, like I said, start with something extremely small, hopefully which involves a movement. And because I'm, again, if you see, I'm just piecing the putting the pieces together by saying that you have the intent, prioritize health and body, right? Of course, health, mind, body, and then you say you have the intent, now you act on it. And when you want to act on it so that you have the desired outcome in the long run, you start with something that's related to movement of the body, which is physical in nature. It could be gym, running, some walking, some physical activity. And I've also told you why that's very important. And to get to that movement, why you need to form a good habit and what it takes to, why habit is important, how your entire body is filled with habits, and what you need to do to start a good habit, right? So that's pretty much it. Look at this. I mean, I'm today. I usually sit in my balcony and do at around 4:45, 5 is my podcast time on Sundays. Today, I ended up sleeping for about half an hour, and I missed the slot. To be honest, after I woke up, I felt bad that I missed my balcony timing because it gets a little dark and I can't do it well. Then I realized, what are the options? Should I just skip it or do it in some other place? And I realized, rather than skipping, I might as well do it in this place, right? That's the power of habit. When you don't do it, just tells you that, hey, why don't you do something instead of doing nothing, right? It's a small step, but it is still progress, right? I hope it was motivating enough for you to make that small move. If you need any help, feel free to comment and I'll see how much or what help you I can provide, or motivation I can do. It's things like motivation, willpower, we'll talk about it later. But I want you guys to get moving and prioritize your own health in terms of both. Start with the body. Don't neglect it. You will, let's think of it as a huge investment with great returns in the long run. I'll see you again, maybe coming Wednesday or Thursday. The coming Wednesday is holiday due to Ganesh Chaturthi. Let's probably do something more deeper into this topic or maybe something else. See you. Cheers. Bye.